Hi, and welcome to our first podcast of Books Don't Review Themselves. I'm Kim.
And I'm Jessica.
And the first book that we're going to be doing is A Serial Killer's Daughter by Kerri Rawson. Okay, I'm going to start out nice, and then it's going to go from there, and yeah, it was written well. I mean, the editing, whoever edited, I thought did a good job. It was consistent, it flowed nicely, so that was great. What are your beginning thoughts of niceness?
Well, I think we should note that the book is about the serial killer BTK, and the whole premise of the book is BTK is Dennis Lynn Rader. And we have in our notes that having a girl's middle name can turn you into a serial killer.
That was just me being sassy. I'm like, really? But yeah.
But basically the book is written by his daughter, and I guess when I chose the book, I thought there was going to be more serial killer information, and there's really not. Now, I'm not trying to discredit what she went through or anything like that, but it wasn't. I don't feel that the book was publicized, and marketed in the right way. Mm-hmm. She touches so much about things that I feel like are kind of irrelevant for what I was looking for in the book, so I almost felt like I kind of wasted some time reading this book.
Did you purchase this one?
Yeah, I purchased this one.
Some time and money.
Yeah, and like she said, it's not that it's not well written or anything like that. It's just not what I was looking for when I picked up the book and what I thought the book was going to be about.
Yeah, and I got mine from our local library. If I had to buy it, this review would be, I'd be getting even more violence on it. So yeah, that's a thing. Now, if you're a serial killer lover or whatever you want to call it, you might want to add this book to your collection just because it is about a serial killer, even though it doesn't touch on him directly that much. If you're someone who enjoys just reading memoirs of survivors, this might be a good book for you.
I think that's basically what it is. It's a memoir about a survivor. It's not even really about BTK at all. And I didn't feel that way.
There's a subtitle to it. I don't remember what it is because I didn't.
Yeah, and I have the book, but I took the cover off, so I don't even.
Is it like on the title page or anything? It should be.
Oh, My Story of Faith, Love, and Overcoming. So I guess that should have been kind of a red flag on our end.
Especially, and later on we'll talk about the religious aspect of it. And since she said My Story of Faith, faith is the
I guess
first
I just didn't think
says.
it was going to play that big of a role, but...
No. And like I said, it's because I think it's the way it's marketed. And plus, the main title is A Serial Killer's Daughter. A serial killer. You're like, okay, I'm going to be getting some inside info on the BTK dude.
And what it was like to live with him and
exactly
be raised by him and whatever. Because, I'm hoping that if you're listening to this, you're kind of a little bit familiar with BTK. But he wasn't caught until 2005. So this was like a killing spree for, 20 years?
It was, but the thing that
it was broken up.
It was. And it was like, I have the different dates in here. The first murder was, 74? Murdered 4 people. And then the last murder...
Was it like 96?
It's mid-90s-ish he's done by, I think.
Yeah, regardless, it wasn't like he was killing in the 2000s, and he was caught in 2005. So like we said, the murder started in...
74.
Yeah, 74. So, I think she said initially in the book she was 25 when the FBI came to her house. So she was thoroughly raised and had an established relationship. It wasn't like she was 4, when he was caught or anything like that.
Okay, now for me, I think it gets even a little bit more personal just because she is 2 years younger than me. I lived in the Midwest, not the same state as her, but the Midwest is similar from state to state. And what I put my second note was we never locked our doors in the Midwest. And the fact that he made them bolt their doors all the time, I'm like, warning flag. And like I said, hindsight is 20/20, so you can look back and be like, oh yeah, this happened, we should have been aware of it. And I think she even mentions it in the book.
Right.
But the other thing that got me too is, if she had been totally naive, if she had been raised on, only Christian fiction books, and,
And she wasn't.
And she wasn't. She even says that she read, mysteries and horror.
Really?
And
and watched
she
horror
watched
movies with her dad.
And then plus her dad had true crime books reading all the time. So
Yeah.
it's not like she was naive and didn't know about these type of things. And there's so many red flags going through that I'm just like, I don't know.
How are you not uncomfortable around him, basically?
Yeah.
Because it's like at the end of the day, it's her dad. I get that you're not, it's not like she could have left home or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
However, like there was a part early on in the book where she talks about the FBI coming to her house, and that's when she's told. And she was leery because she sees a vehicle outside the apartment window, and she's on the second floor, and she's leery that this person in this vehicle is looking into her window. And she said that when she was younger, her dad used to peer and, like, position himself and, like, peer through the blinds. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, nobody does that. Like, nobody does that. No one stands up to the window and looks like this. Like, that's weird. People don't do that.
And it's not, I mean, it's not just those two things. You know,
right.
It keeps going on. Animal torture? How did I get that one? I go, why does there always have to be animal torture? I read lots, and I love horror, and I love thrillers, and I've read tons of stuff on serial killers. But when I get to in a book, when they start abusing animals, that angers me.
And it's a major red flag.
It's a huge red flag. And I'm like, you know, just if this ever happens, if you are out in the world, you're a parent or whatever, and your kid starts torturing animals, I am sorry, go put them in an asylum now, because no, that is not good.
And you should at least be concerned. I mean, at that point, like, because again, not normal. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I really was kind of a red flag for me was that she had said that there were two sides to her dad. So it's like when you came home, she said if his eyes were like green and bright and whatever, that was dad. If he had like these stormy gray eyes, you knew to mind your P's and Q's, put your shoes away. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, every dad has a bad day, but I don't recall looking at my dad and being like, ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it was more like my mom saying, when your dad gets home, you know, you better
be good.
Yeah.
I mean, another red flag, you know, like I said, it's 2020 hindsight, but he was studying law enforcement. A lot of serial killers like to
have a background in law enforcement or law, like as a lawyer,
or get involved, you know, with the police.
Right.
Another red flag was, let's see, working for a home security company. I mean, come on, especially back in the 80s or 90s.
And the thing that kind of pissed me off a little bit is her saying that that's why she thought he was so cautious. And I'm like, what the fuck do you see as an ADT installer? You don't, it's not like you're going to people's house and they're robbing the fucking house while you're there. Mm-hmm. You're there to install a camera. I mean, I highly doubt in the 80s that he heard a horror story of like, they didn't have a camera and this person was brutally raped and murdered, so that's why they're installing an ADT. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, yeah. Back then, no.
And the thing, too, he's the installer. He's not the one who gets the calls. Maybe if he was the dude who got the calls, okay, I could possibly see that. But not just the installer, because no.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like you weren't in the line of duty. He was in the military for a little bit, but it wasn't active duty. And it sounds like he avoided active duty. So it was like you didn't have anything in your background where you were exposed, you know.
PTSD type things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. There's more red flags later on, I am sure. The other thing, too, is I put same old story. A stressor, losing a job, starts spiraling into killing. And you know what drives me nuts? Okay, this is my women's studies background coming out, whatever you want to call it. But if you look at, like, freaking serial killers, like, it's always a stressor. I'm talking men. It's always a stressor, you know, that sets them off or whatever. Not always, but you know what I'm saying. And then with women, it's always because they were physically abused or sexually abused.
And something snapped. Yeah. Like, where they couldn't take something anymore.
But this is just like, it's like, dude, you lost your job. It sucks. It really does suck. But
that shit happens. And you, like, that happens to people every day, and they don't murder people. Like,
I mean, maybe, I don't know. That just drives me nuts, you know?
It seems like such a
cop-out? I mean,
yeah,
obviously
it makes
has
you
mental
really
issues
seem like
besides.
A pussy. It really does.
You even put that down there.
Really?
I'm just like, come on, dude. Women, like, they go through so much stuff, you know, before they start killing. And here's you lose your job, and
you're like,
I need to start just killing people. I don't know. And I feel bad. I mean,
I feel bad for her.
Exactly.
You know,
her family and
being in that situation, right. But I'm a skeptic at heart. I'm very skeptical. And for me to look back at this and be like, how did you not see this? Like, how did you not know that, hey, Dad's a little fucking weird? I guess you don't assume that your dad's a serial killer.
Because, I mean, you grow up and that's all you know.
But she seemed so naive for 25. And granted, you know, no, it was 2005. Like, I was going to say it's the 80s. Yeah, it wasn't the 80s. It was 2005. You were 25 years old. Like, I bought a house before that and, you know, worked full-time job and had benefits. Like, to be like, and she was a substitute teacher, and she was just like, yeah, I took a day off work from substitute teaching because I get anxiety driving because she lives in Michigan. And it's like, we do that shit every day.
We live in Wisconsin, so we kind of know what the weather situation's like.
Yeah. I mean, you leave early, you pack shit in your car, and you pray.
But that is what you do. But okay, now I'm gonna be the nice person here, other side of the devil's advocate. But if she was, even though she wasn't physically abused like her brother was, I mean, getting choked twice. I mean, we're gonna get into that a little bit later on. Right. But you know, mentally, you know, and even though she wasn't acknowledging to herself that her dad was whatever he was. Right. I think subconsciously she was. So I can see where all the anxiety and all that kind of stuff came through to her, even though she didn't know where it was coming from. So, I mean, in that regard, I can see her being so jumpy, you know, not getting anxiety, you know, driving and stuff like that. But it's just frustrating.
I think I just look at it that at the end of the day, she wasn't a Duggar child.
Oh, God.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
we will not be reading one of those books. I'm sorry.
She grew up watching horror movies. Now, I didn't watch horror movies. I didn't really read this kind of stuff until I got older, but she was, and she even said, like, Mom wouldn't want me reading this, and this was, like, kind of between her and Dad. So it's like, I don't know, and I just seemed really naive for 25.
Yeah, and even as a child, if you didn't see it, why didn't her frickin' mother see it? I mean, come on. That drives me nuts. And
to come up with excuses for him to be an asshole and, like, throw tantrums.
No. A lot of the notes that I put was similarities between me and her, just because, like I said, we are so close in age. And I think that's why it annoys me even more, because, like, we're the same age, and I'm like, how can you... Okay, I don't know,
unless you were sheltered.
Which she wasn't, though.
Exactly, unless you were in a situation where, like, you weren't exposed to TV, you weren't exposed to media, you weren't exposed, like, she knew the killings were happening in the area, she knew people were dying, you know, unless you weren't exposed to those things.
But I mean, she was pretty young when they happened, you know, so that too.
Right.
Okay. Where we're going, should we talk about the 43 pages of her hiking trip?
Oh, dear God.
So I'm just like, we're reading, blah, blah, blah. And see, I think that's another reason why this book annoyed me. And usually if you go to our website and read the book reviews that I've written, I am pretty nice to most of the books because I know writing a book is hard. And I know it takes a lot of effort. And I mean, writing a memoir about, you know, your father being a serial killer, that's like, I can't even imagine that. That's beyond hard.
Right.
But 43 pages on a hiking trip. And the only thing that I got out of that hiking trip was that she thought about committing suicide, but didn't, and then gave her faith and put her body and soul up to God. Okay. 43 pages! It was too much!
And again, going back to what we said in the beginning, we bought this book for this serial killer. Like, we bought it, like, I want to know her insights and what it was like and that kind of stuff. But it was like you want one of Ted Bundy's lovers to write a book and, like, what he was like and this and that. You don't care about whether they went to Perkins or Costco and what they bought and what it meant. Like, unless it's a knife, you know, or something, like, to do with the serial killer. It just was so I was skimming through the book last night, and I'm trying to find the section that I had read aloud to my husband, and it literally talks about something with Cheez-Its. And he just starts fucking laughing because he's like, isn't this book supposed to be about BTK? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, so why the fuck do you care that she had Cheez-Its on this trip? I'm like, I don't. Mm-hmm. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, how many pages is the book total? Like 300?
It's 319 pages.
Okay, so 300 pages of this book. I would say maybe if you took everything out and only what went with the BTK, you would maybe get 60 pages.
I think that's even like being generous.
That's being generous because some of the stuff was repeated. But it's like, okay, if that's all the information you have, that's fine. Then you market this differently, and if you do want it as a serial killer book, then you do it as you just let people know that, this is what I got. This is all I'm giving you. This is all I can give you. That's the other thing, like with other books that drive me nuts, not just this book, but any book, when authors write books and they just, when we talk about the Mister, I have problems with that. Like when they add like just one word sentences for a whole line, and that way they can make the book longer. If you don't have the material, you don't have the material. Don't add stuff about Cheez-Its because, I'm sorry, my time is valuable and I don't want to have to read that kind of crap. I want a good story, whether it be nonfiction or fiction. So authors, if you don't have the material, make it into a short story. It's that simple. I mean, right. I don't know what else to say. Okay, now we're going to get into the religious aspect of it. And I know there's going to be some people who maybe started listening to this, and once we start on this, they're going to be like, screw you guys, never listening to another one. And for that, I feel bad. And it's not even, I don't care that she's religious, but just the way that it happened, So, like, all these things happen. Was it her cousin? Was that Michelle who was her cousin dies?
Right, yes.
And then, like, her grandfather dies. And she's like, I hate you, God, and there is no God. Why would you make my grandfather, who is old, die? It's like, people die. It sucks. People die. So she's losing her faith. And then she gains it up during her hiking trip. She looks like God. Let us get through this horrible hiking trip, and I will dedicate my life to you. Okay, that's fine, whatever.
That's a weird time.
It is.
To be like,
people find God everywhere. Now, where I'm going with this, and this is a thing that drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. Okay, when people are in jail, prison, whatever, and they find religion. No. I will say, and this is
they don't have Jesus when they leave.
Exactly. They might have it during, but when they leave, it's gone. I'm being generous here. I will say maybe 15% of those people find God and
change,
which is great. The 85% do not. So later on in the book, she's talking to her father in prison, and this one thing stood out to me, and I'm just like, ah. So he's talking about how the rest of his family is not writing him or coming to visit, and he's like, oh, that's not very Christian of them. I'm like,
either is murdering people.
You killed 10 people. I mean, it was almost 11. So, no, I can't handle that. I don't know.
Well, and kind of a tangent here. Oh. I was born and raised Catholic. I was baptized, confirmed, had my first communion, all that good stuff. Now, everyone knows the stigma around being Catholic and
unfortunately
priests and all that kind of stuff. When I was going through CCD, so as I was going through that, and this would have been after my first communion, so I would have been like middle school age. Mind you, priests are not allowed to get married, but like other parts of
the clergy or whatever,
are able to get married and have kids. So imagine this: you're a priest, you can't get married, you can't have a family.
Because your life is dedicated to God.
Right, you're dedicated to God. Mm-hmm. Okay, great. However...
okay, great.
Right. So this priest that the church that we went to, he had these two big dogs. They were like his babies. And like one of them passed away, and I think the other one passed away. Now imagine you don't have anything. You don't have family, you don't have a spouse, you don't have a support system, it seems like, outside of the church. He ended up committing suicide. And I felt terrible for him, but I look at it now as an adult and I see like yeah, that would be really fucking depressing. That would be fucking terrible.
Yeah.
To not have, anything besides these dogs. Mm-hmm. And you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to have anything else. It's not that he chose.
I'm like, he couldn't have dogs?
Well,
what?
Yeah, he could have dogs. But, you can't, it's not like he chose that, I want to live this life alone, which I guess you kind of do as a priest.
Yeah,
but,
I do.
And that's a sin. Killing yourself is a sin.
So
and
he's
then
going to hell.
That's not what we were told.
Oh, where'd he go?
We were told at CCD because of all his good
stuff.
services and all this and that you could tell they didn't really want to talk about that or touch on it because they were like, well, I mean.
Whereas I would have been that kid who's like, isn't he going to hell?
Yeah,
Let's talk about that.
Before I got confirmed, I was told yoga was a sin. I asked, I'm like, why? They're like, well, because you're
it's a different religion.
I'm like, it's not. I'm like, I may have experimented with a Ouija board, and I brought the devil into my house.
Oh, it's still inside of you,
right? But it's just you don't get to say that these are the rules, and if you break them, you're going to hell. And then, this guy breaks it, and it's like, well, and then this guy, he kills all these people, and he's like, but I haven't been killing any more.
Didn't he say, I'm a good guy but I've done bad things? I'm a good guy, but I'm a good woman, but I've done bad things.
And to even honestly, if he was a relative of mine, and he was bitching that I didn't visit him, I would go there and slap the shit out of him and then leave. Uh-huh. And then that would be the end of the story.
Yeah. Well, there's probably no touching in prison, but still.
We'd make an exception.
The guards would overlook it, so that would be fine. Okay, so getting back to the whole religious thing. Sorry that we're dwelling on this, but it's a big part of the book. That's
it's a
the
very
reason
big
why.
Part of the book.
I would say it's 3/4 of the book.
Right.
So it's not like we're just picking out those 5 pages that she's talking about it. It's a huge thing. So her faith in God is restored after the trip.
Which still to me is fucking weird. That's a weird time to find.
Yeah.
If you're about to get electrocuted. Maybe.
But the things that go on for me that I'm like, what? So in June 1997, God, we had a deal. This is her talking. If I get out of the hiking trip and start reading the Bible, we'll be besties. So that's great. And then she talks about not really finding anyone, because she keeps getting the I like you like a Christian sister card. I have swear words written after that, which you don't need to hear. But I'm just like, Jess, what are you making me read? It's I've never. So now.
And the best part about this is, so our next podcast is going to be about The Mister by E.L. James. I thought that was forcing you to read something you didn't want to read. I did not realize that this was going to also be that.
And I was thinking serial killer, awesome, gonna love it.
You didn't even bat an eye.
No,
you were like,
if the library doesn't have a copy, I'm even willing to buy it. No. So, and then she talks on page 103, pray for my future husband. I wrote, Jessica, this is paining me to go on, but for you, I will because I love you like a Christian sister. I'm like, what is that? I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting too nitpicky. I don't care, but that drove me nuts. I would say that just drove me nuts.
Well, the thing is, and we keep saying this, when I look at this book and what I expected to get out of it, the book Wild? There's that movie
where they're out in the wilderness.
Reese Witherspoon is in it, and they're out. Some of that, some of this made me think of that, and I'm like, but I knew,
you knew what you were getting into.
What that book was.
Exactly.
And it's that is not this. Your dad is a serial killer.
And she brings up 9/11, which, you got to bring that up always, but at least there's only a few paragraphs, so that I give her kudos for. That I was like, whoa, I'm very impressed with that. Now, the last note that I had for this, and
probably one of the best. One of the best notes.
I don't like how she's equating bondage with being bad or killing people. Because there are people out there who enjoy BDSM, and they are perfectly fine adults. And I'm just like, I think that tipped me over the edge.
There's something called consent.
Exactly.
Consent.
And I could have overlooked. Well, no. At this point, I couldn't have. But I was thinking I could have, overlooked all the other stuff. But I'm just like, okay, now you're just No, it's too much. It's too much. Okay, I have to butt in really quick. Okay, so I ran a book club at our local library. And I was like one of the youngest people there. I'm in my 40s. So I had a lot of ladies and a couple gents who were like 50s, 60s, 70s. I did not know this. Okay, I was baptized and raised Lutheran.
We call that the lazy version of Catholic,
It is.
by the
It
way.
totally is. I got some horror stories for you, though, that are just as bad as Catholic stories. We'll save those for another day. So these ladies were telling me, and they went to a Christian school, so they're like 20 years older than me. They were not allowed to read the Bible. You're Christian, but you're not allowed to read the Bible. This blew my mind, and at first I'm like, what in the world are you ladies talking about? But then I thought about it for a second, and I'm like, this makes sense. They want you to do exactly what they say and not question anything. If you have the Bible in front of you, you can question things. You can be like, how is this possible?
Like, what you're saying doesn't match what this textbook, essentially, for this religion is saying.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Why they wouldn't want to do that. It makes sense. I don't think it's right, but it makes sense.
It's brainwashing. I mean, that's really what it is. Oh, I forgot about something.
We're getting off the book a little bit here, but...
When I went through my first communion, we have pictures of me with this priest, whatever. We moved to a different town where that's where the priest had killed himself. Then we moved back to the area because of my dad's job. And at that point, when we moved back to the area, I was a freshman in high school. And we got the paper. And in the paper was the priest that did my first communion was in jail.
What for? Do tell, Jessica. What for?
Well, Kim, since you ask, apparently he was following little boys into the locker rooms and whatever at the Wisconsin Dells.
Nice. Never would have guessed that. Never would have.
I have pictures with this gentleman, and I told him my dirty secrets when I was that age.
Your dirty secrets.
Yes, because at that point you have to confess all your sins.
So you yelled at your mom, or you didn't go to bed on time.
Yeah, whatever, all the nasty things I did as a first grader. But I guess at the end of the day, there are religions that I think are like, yeah.
No religion is perfect.
Right, no religion is perfect. I just think that to just be so narrow-minded is a problem.
And not even just with religion. I mean, just with anything. I mean, they say you're not supposed to talk about religion or politics, so pardon us. We just did. But
Bad on us.
Bad on us. But it's just the whole open-minded thing. And they're like, well, Kim and Jess, it doesn't seem like you're very open-minded about, Christians or whatever.
We were raised that way. This is from years and years of research. Like, it's not like I'm not going to say anything about, the Jewish religion. I don't know anything about the Jewish religion. But I do have a pretty good idea of Catholicism and Christianity, so I'm not going to sit here and bash anything on that. It's either you continue your religious conquest or whatever, but don't half-ass it. Don't sit here and tell me you're a Christian man and then murder 8 people and be like,
whatever, God will forgive me.
I prayed about it. Yeah. I don't fucking care. They're dead.
Yeah, they're not coming back. So.
It's like...
I mean, unless you believe in reincarnation, which is a whole
That's a different religion. So it's like... Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. So, would you recommend this book, Jessica?
If you're like me and you were hoping to get some like dirty details and secrets, no. If you are someone of faith, do I think it's empowering in the sense of she
wrote her story.
She wrote her story. Yep. She has, and again, I feel terrible for her and what she went through. I don't wish that upon anybody, and I'm glad that if religion and that gives her something that she's missing, great. Do I think she's a bad person? No. Do I think her story is meaningful? Yes. However, it wasn't what I was looking for when I picked up this book. So I think if you're someone who enjoys and I don't want to say lighter because I mean it is about being the daughter of a serial killer.
Yes.
But it is, in my eyes, it's a lighter read to what I'm used to. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for something that's empowering or someone going through a hard time or like a memoir, a survivor, mm-hmm. yes, then I would recommend it. It's not like it's a terrible book. Mm-hmm. It's just
it's
not
well written.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's not what we signed
up for.
Yeah, it's mm-hmm. not definitely my cup of tea.
No. Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. Hopefully you stayed till the end, and hopefully we didn't put you off too much with all of our religious talks. I don't think every book we talk about will have that much religion in them.
No, I think very few.
Very few.
This might be the only one.
But maybe we will read some Christian religion. I've read it, or Christian fiction. I've read some in the past, and I've enjoyed it. There's some good books out there. I'm not saying I'm gonna be reading Timothy LaHaye. Is he the one with the?
I wouldn't know. I'm the wrong person to ask.
But I mean, there's some good ones out there. I mean, there's some great ones out there. Lots of people love them.
Right.
It's not something that
It's probably the context of how religion is viewed in this.
Yes.
Because, when I was younger, I loved, the show, Touched by an Angel.
Oh, yeah.
And I liked that of, someone surviving cancer and that sort of mm-hmm. stuff. To me, I just feel like with him and murdering people and then using it as a crutch, it was just that pushed the button yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
And there's some Christian fiction that I've read. A lot of them are more thriller ones, mm-hmm. so you got a little bit more action in it. But if they didn't have I know I'm going to say this wrong, Psalms? Is that how you say Psalms?
Yes.
Psalms.
Also wrong person to ask.
If they didn't have those at the beginning of the chapters, with whatever, John 3:16 or whatnot, right. You wouldn't even know some of these books are Christian fiction. So,
some chicken soup books.
Oh, those are nice too.
Yeah.
They're not
if you want something uplifting,
And just light and to realize there are good people in this world.
Right,
and not serial killers. So,
right.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah, so like we said, future books probably won't be talking about religion at all or as much.
Right.
This one it was 3/4 of the book, so
right. It was
kind of have to touch about it. So anyway, we're gonna put one out every Monday. So check on back, subscribe, We're on Instagram. Books Don't Review Themselves on Facebook as well. You can check out our personal socials if you want to.
Yep.
Whatnot. We'll have them at the bottom, so all the information is there.
And then we also were kind of talking about how we're going to probably announce, for future books, just check back on our social media. We'll announce
which ones are coming up.
Yep, which ones are coming up.
And if you want to read them so you know what we're talking about, awesome.
Yeah, we're going to try and give you, at least a couple episodes in advance. So that's something to look for. So if you're not turned off by us, the next podcast...
Or hey, maybe if you are, maybe you want to sit and rage watch them with your bestie. That's awesome too.
But subscribe.
Whatever you do, subscribe.
And so, the next podcast is going to be The Mister by E.L. James. So tune in for that, because that one is going to be fun, because I forced her to read that knowing she wasn't going to like reading it. So stay tuned.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.